You want to try to maximize each deal, and being able to quickly and effectively evaluate them is going to allow you to, have that high level of certainty that you can get it done and not, get ones under contract that you have to eventually renegotiate or go back on.
So not only are we making way more money doing a novation, we're getting the seller way more money in their pocket.
Yeah.
Guys, welcome back to video 3 in this masterclass series all about novations. Our goal here is to give you everything you need to know to start and complete a novation deal. And this is an advanced strategy, so if this is your first go at a real estate deal, maybe not a good fit, Rich, but as you progress in your real estate business, doing wholesaling and transacting, flipping, even holding, learning how to do a novation and building a business around a novation strategy is something that everybody should be thinking about and considering. So we're really excited to have Rich.
Yes, sir.
Back in the studio for video 3 here in this series. And guys, a couple housekeeping things. If you're just now joining this series, highly recommend you stop right now, go back and watch video 1 where we did a big overview, and video 2 where we talked about the sales process with a seller. Really, really good. I mean, phenomenal, Rich, what you shared. Guys, this is life-changing information, I think. I know you think this.
Yeah.
It's changed my life, and I know it's changed your life. And so we really want you to learn this in the right order. There are a lot of moving parts with the novation, so it's important that you're following an order to this so that you can transact this well. And keep in mind, we've got some great resources for you. There's a quick start kit, which has a lot of things that will help you as you start to do this business and learn this strategy. And you can partner with Rich on deals. You can JV with him on Novation Deals. So stick to the end. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this video. I'm really excited about this one, Rich, because on this video, you're gonna break down and share the formula, right?
Yes.
And how to get to that offer that you're gonna make a seller. Mm-hmm. And this is key here because if you blow this, then the whole deal doesn't work, right?
Correct.
So getting to the number is really important on having a very dialed in way of getting to that number so that this works. You mentioned in the previous video, the very last thing we want to do is get this wrong and the seller have a bad experience and the deal doesn't close because we didn't perform correctly.
Right.
Deals don't close all the time and unforeseen things come up, but we want to minimize that and we want the seller to get that end result that we initially promised them or commit to them with that number, right? So
yes.
So let's talk about this. What's the way that we can get to that number and feel certain about it?
Yes, and real quick, I want to touch on the deeper that we can get these deals, the more certainty we have, right? And also the more services we can provide for the seller because there's room in there for all that. So it is really important. And although, we're giving them a 5-star experience, of course, this is still a business, right? And you want to try to maximize each deal, and being able to quickly and effectively evaluate them is going to allow you to, have that high level of certainty that you can get it done and not, get ones under contract that you have to eventually renegotiate or go back on. So the lucky part is these are actually much easier to evaluate than a wholesale deal for a few reasons. Okay, we don't have to factor in a cash buyer profit. So that's one. 2, we're not factoring in repair costs. So ARV is completely out the window.
And ARV, guys, is after repair value, which is the fully remodeled homes that sold on the market, right? So
correct.
That's what he means by ARV, which means now you got to go look at comps and you got to identify, okay, which ones are fully remodeled and which ones aren't, and try to come up with those high level comps, right? So you're not doing that.
We're not evaluating based on that. We're looking for the current condition value.
As is.
So as it sits, right, what are the most similar properties selling for the most recently? That's one part of it. And then the second step is, what are the ones that are currently on the market listed at? How long have they been there, right? Because the market is a moving target. So you can look at a comp from 6 months ago and it may not necessarily be valid if there's a similar property that's been sitting on the market for 3 months at a lower price. Mm-hmm. So the first number we need to figure out is the number that we can confidently say it will likely sell for quickly in its current condition.
On the open market.
On the open market, correct.
Because that matters. The open market matters because when a property goes on the open market, meaning listed, that gets you the most exposure on a property. That is how you get the full market value in its current condition is on the open market.
Correct.
Right? You take a deal to your buyer's list, that's a very segmented part of the market.
Yes.
But the real value is going to be what does the open market say about it?
Correct. And then we need to factor in too what it will sell for quickly. So our target on this is to get an acceptable offer within 3 weeks.
Okay.
So from the point of it being signed, 4 weeks is really kind of the drop dead date. And you need to make an adjustment before that because we normally build the anticipation for a 60-day total process. And since most of our buyers are using loans, from the point it goes under contract, it's normally 30 days. So out of the 60 days, there's already 30 days of that allocated to the back end process, the escrow, inspections,
Once under contract
appraisal.
with the buyer.
Correct. Yeah. So you want to price these aggressively when you're selling them, right? This is not something where you make your money by squeezing every penny out of it. You need to be able to negotiate so that you can sell it at a discount as well so that it moves quick. Because part of giving them a 5-star experience is having it move quickly and go. I mean, I really want it going under contract within a week or two. That's an ideal scenario. And because the longer that it takes, the less satisfaction your seller is going to have and the more potential problems there are going to be when they see that you make money or where they see how much money you're making, right? So a few things. So we talked about looking at the ones that have sold recently and also the ones that are currently listed because those are your quote unquote competition, right? So you want to get the current condition value and the rough formula is 90% of current condition value. That 10% haircut is accounting for, in most markets, 6% realtor commissions. Closing costs, which can be a percentage or two. And then there's normally going to be a couple percentage points of either concessions, credits for the buyer. And also you got to factor in, if you already know that the seller is going to need help moving, there are things that it's going to make sense to repair beforehand. You need to also factor that into your max allowable offer. Yeah. Right?
So you guys see that? Once you establish that as is value, current market value, you're automatically taking 10% off to cover closing fees. Because remember, you committed to the seller a number. So that seller, it's not what they net after closing, that's their number.
Yeah.
So when you start to factor in now, well, okay, well, what's my formula to get to my number? You have to factor in, well, when we sell this property to the end buyer, there's about 10% of that number, that sale price number, that you're going to be factoring in as cost.
Correct.
Commissions, closing fees, and maybe the seller does an inspection and they come up with a list of 25 things that they want done, and there's $5,000 to do those things or whatever. So you got that little bit of, I call it punch list, but
yeah,
that little bit of list that a buyer might want done. So that's part of that 10% number.
Correct.
Now, that's not a brand new pool,
right?
Things like that.
That's for the unknown things.
A new roof.
Yes. Yeah. So
it's for the unknowns that come up in an inspection typically.
Correct. And if there's known things that you need to fix, you need to do that in addition to the 10%. The 10%'s a buffer, right? Now, that minus at least 30,000.
Okay.
So you do not.
We go 40, but.
Yeah, and that's not a bad way to go, honestly, because 40 and 30 is essentially the same thing. It's pretty close, and that's why I don't recommend going to 20, because 20 turns into 5.
I was going to say our 40 turns into 25 to 30.
Correct. So
typically, because we're off on, we got to drop the price maybe a little bit, or the concession number's higher than, like it's a buffer.
Yeah, and 40 honestly isn't bad. I may even change mine to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and keep in mind, we're not aiming for 30 for everyone. That's the max allowable offer.
Right.
So you want to try to negotiate as low as you possibly can, because there are going to be unforeseen things. And obviously, as a business person, if you get a good opportunity where you can make a high profit, those are the ones that really move the needle for your business. The lower priced, like the lower profit ones, those are the ones that pay bills, keep your operation going. And the big ones are what really move the needle and get you ahead.
Yeah.
So,
But if you think about it, Rich, I mean, you're right, that is a much easier formula, MAO formula, because establishing the as-is value is a whole lot easier than establishing ARV.
correct.
Because ARV is very subjective. It's the top of the market.
Yes.
And someone might remodel a house and they spend $100,000 and it's over the top. And then other ones might be what I call a Home Depot special. And there's a big difference between that ARV and that ARV, right?
Yeah.
And there's limited comps, so sometimes you don't have enough. So now you're trying to ballpark that ARV number, whereas as is, the current value, there's usually plenty of data to help you establish that value.
Correct, because the middle of the road is the biggest segment of the market. So your property is falling into a very similar category where the most data is available, right? Because it depends on the markets too. But especially,
I've done ARV where like there is no ARV. I can't find a comp in the neighborhood that's a renovation recently. And so now you're like, okay, well, let's start to go out of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then now you're less relevant as soon as you leave the neighborhood.
And
just to try to find ARV comps.
And if there's no ARV comps, there's probably not a lot of investor activity. So you're going to have trouble finding a cash buyer as well.
You're going to struggle with your buyer when you don't have good data for them.
Correct.
Right? So this, and then the formula is real simple. 10% minus your profit, 30, 40, whatever number. Keep it a good number so you have a buffer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's your formula, right?
That's it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it really simplifies things. And one advantage of this too is, in smaller markets where there may not be investor activity, there's still, people that are looking for places to live. And we found a lot of these, we're getting FHA loans, VA loan buyers, whereas first-time home buyers, where maybe they don't need a completely renovated house, they're looking to get out of an apartment, maybe they're living with family members, maybe they're moving because of a job, and they plan on either doing some minimal renovations as they
DIYs,
go, or or
I-
they don't plan on renovating it at all.
I call it the live-in flippers. Like, hey, it's a little dated. I'll put in a new kitchen, eventually, or I'll finish the basement or whatever. There's a buyer that wants a discount for a livable or mortgageable house. They don't want to pay full price for something brand new fixed up.
Yeah.
And every market has that buyer.
Yes. Yeah, so we found like we did a deal in Atlanta, Texas, not Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta, Texas. Less than 5,000 people there.
Texas.
A lot of people didn't know, right? And less than 5,000 people there, and it was a deal that we ended up making close to $25,000 on. Mm-hmm. And it was a house they had bought a little bit over a year ago, and there was no opportunity for fix and flip, and these people were in a very tight situation.
You could have gotten that deal at 20 cents on the dollar and still not found a buyer if you did traditional wholesale. Because there's just no buyers in that tiny little town.
Exactly.
And how do you find them if there is one?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of work to try to find that buyer with a traditional wholesale to a cash buyer. Whereas there's enough retail buyers, right? Looking for as-is properties where that would work.
And in the smaller towns, the real buyers are big fishes in a small pond. And a lot of times they can just be direct to seller because of their reputation, their relationships with realtors. Mm-hmm. But yeah, in this one, it wouldn't even been an option because their mortgage was at a place that they couldn't take an offer that was that low.
Yeah.
But it really...
Now, are you finding, side note here, are you finding that targeting rural areas is a good strategy for Novation?
So,
I mean, that's Sean Terry's model.
Right. So a lot of people that are doing like PPC or Facebook ads, they, if they're looking for the lowest cost per lead, they end up getting a lot of stuff in smaller towns, right? So with these, absolutely. Now, would I necessarily recommend that as a strategy? Me personally, I like the higher price point houses because if I'm making a 10 to 20% margin, which is normally the reasonable range that it falls into, I would much rather get that margin on a higher price point because here's the thing too, like they see exactly what you make. So if you're making a 50% margin, you may end up having to give them, or at least wanting to give them, some more money because this isn't something where you should be getting half the equity in their home as a general rule, right? That kind of falls into maybe a bit of a gray area. And especially if the house isn't super distressed. And really, you're going to have a hard time negotiating to that anyways. So it's not really a problem you're going to have.
And that's not your point. I mean, that's not what you're doing. Otherwise, that's the low cash offer. Otherwise, you're novating a low cash offer, which really isn't what you're trying to do here.
Well, here's the thing though. We use the same strategy for the as-is properties, and there's a few benefits to that. Because one, we still have more exposure to the cash buyers. Now, we sell those as is. It's not technically a novation because sometimes we can assign or double close them, but sometimes it'll be a retail buyer and a retail agent where they have no idea even what that is, and we'll still novate it because they're trying to submit it on a state contract. Yeah. They don't want to be involved with anything that's outside of their comfort zone. And there's some states like Illinois, Oklahoma, where you'll do a novation there just because they've got rules against assignability and double closing.
Or I've had it where the buyer with their agent will not use my title company. They will only use theirs, and theirs has no idea how to do an assignment. That's going to blow up in your face.
Well, with the novation strategy, the title company is a key component. And if you think it's harder to find one for an assignment or double close, it's even a smaller spectrum. The solution for that is I just use ezREIClosings, where they select it for me. Part of the Rainmaker strategy is finding the best person.
By the way, I'll put their link in the description, you guys.
David Olds, yeah.
Yeah, they're great. They're in every market. Their team is amazing. They now are buying a title company. He's buying a title company.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah.
Very cool.
Because now he'll have total control over the whole process.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about him. Like now, not just the TC and the service between seller and end buyer and all of that, but now title too. Imagine how seamless that process will be when he has full control over title as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they're great.
Yeah. But and in smaller markets too, that's another issue with not only with the comping, but having the correct title company. There's also national title companies out there that service most states that you can use as well.
Yeah.
But I mean that's the beauty of this strategy is you can monetize these leads that for various reasons would not work as a wholesale. And yeah, if you're targeting rural or you just happen to get the rural ones, even if you're not targeting them, a lot of times you can still make a win-win because these are the people that also, they're bouncing from wholesaler to wholesaler and everyone's looking at it and saying, thanks, but no thanks. And they can't sell it literally for any price. You know what I mean?
I mean, think about how exciting this is because if you take as is, take off 10%, subtract your profit of 40, what we do, 40.
Yeah.
That number is significantly higher than ARV 30%.
Yeah.
Because now you got to take 30% off because the flipper's got to pay, all those closing fees are still there, and they have carrying costs for financing, and they have their profit, minus repairs.
Yeah.
Minus your wholesale fee.
Yeah.
So your novation formula is going to be significantally higher than that low cash offer, and you're still making and we make way more novating than we do doing typically than assignments.
Yes.
So not only are we making way more money doing a novation, we're getting the seller way more money in their pocket.
Yeah.
And we're solving a problem that we wouldn't even be able to wholesale that anyway because they're not going to take that low cash offer.
Yeah, we're cutting out the investor.
It's flipping genius. That's flipping genius, Rich.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And yeah, most people when they hear about the opportunity, their jaw drops, and a lot of times they're just extremely skeptical because it is so lucrative and it is such a win-win. We're looking for the thing of like, why would this not work? Why is this not widespread? And the paperwork and the process has finally got to the point where it can be adaptable by people widespread.
I think that's why. I mean, like when you went through in the last video, if you guys missed it, it was fire. But when you went through your sale process, that's not so cut and dry as just cash convenient. We can close that as is, and you know what I mean. Like, there's more going on there.
Yeah.
Where you can screw this up.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's what you've mastered is that sale process.
Yes.
So I think you're trading off a little bit of a more complicated process.
Yes.
For making more money and getting the seller more money. Like everything has trade-offs.
Definitely.
But that's the trade-off, right? But is it worth learning that sales process and getting really good at it? Heck yeah, man. I mean, you've got to learn it if you want to do well at this.
Yes, and it applies for your cash deals, and you can have full transparency with the seller where, again, since we're not pitching the process of, hey, we're going to go hire an agent and getting into the weeds of everything that's going on, it's just the result. For the deals that are in more poor condition that we got at a higher discount, we will first fire them off on investor lift, cash buyers list, because if we can avoid the whole back end process and make similar money, we'll do that all day.
Yeah.
And about 20% of our deals, we end up selling off market. So the sales process does work for cash ones as well, but for the higher price point houses, it is much more effective, and there's just more room for margin. And those are the harder ones to wholesale too.
I think that's because on your lower priced ones, you might hit a buy and hold investor who will pay that higher number because they're not going to go in there and do much. They're going to maybe throw some carpet and paint and throw a tenant in there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas your higher price homes, those don't really fit for rentals, and you're going to be targeting more of a retail buyer, a homeowner, than maybe like a buy and hold investor, is what I see. So on the lower price ones, like you said, we can sometimes sell those off market, whereas the higher price ones are typically we're going to go on market and we're going to find a retail buyer for it.
Yeah, and the higher price home sellers, they're less likely to sacrifice a large portion of their equity because, you know, they understand the value of the property fixed up more, and they've got more to lose and more at stake, and they're just generally, you know, in a different position in life than someone that has a $70,000 or $60,000 house.
Right, exactly, yeah. Okay, so when it comes to this formula, by the way, guys, put a simple calculator together. It's in the Quick Start Kit. And I mean, the math isn't that complicated, but it's nice to be able to plug in the numbers. We built this little calculator where you can, you know, list out your as-is comps. It'll average them out for you, drop it in the box, take the 10% off, minus your, so it's all kind of built in.
Nice.
I'm sure you're using a calculator just to simplify and speed up the process. So we'll give that to you for free. It's in the description in that Quick Start Kit, along with a bunch of other resources that will be really helpful. And again, I want to point out as well that you guys can JV with Rich and his team on deals. So this is really cool. What you can do is if you're out there doing marketing and you're talking to sellers and you have someone that you think would be a good novation, then Rich and his team, they'll help you do a warm transfer or handoff from that lead to your team, and your team will then take that seller, walk them through this whole concierge process, get them to the finish line, and then share in profits with you. So pretty cool, guys, really cool, because I think that might be the best way to get started, maybe do a handful of deals. Rich will be the first one to tell you that you can do this and learn this and get really proficient at it like you guys are. But maybe walking through a few on with your team would be really helpful. So if you see value in that, guys, you can do that as well. At the end of the day, though, I think the goal should be, how does this become a tool in my toolbox where it could be the only tool in your toolbox, like you're doing, like primarily novations. I'm sure you're doing some other things, but the focus is on getting really good at these and doing them at scale. So if that's your goal as well, then this is a great way to start that process. And learn how to do it. So those are some great resources there, guys. But if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and be on the lookout for the next video in the series. We're gonna put all these videos into a playlist. That link is also in the description below the video here. Be sure to stay with us throughout this process and go in order, like we talked about. And appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next video.